what is the weather, and it basically says like, okay, like I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because it doesn't know what the city is. But now let's say another one. Let's say like, what is the weather in New York? It says like, okay, in New York it's, you know, like August 14. It searches the search and basically, you know, like it returns the result. Now, what about Boston? Now, because as the question about the weather earlier, it knows that we continue the conversation about the Boston and is able to answer. If I go in here and I say, what about the weather? What about, not the weather, but what about the Boston? The answer will be like, I'm missing the context. I don't understand what you want. And you think like, well, this is smart, of course, like, but the thing is just like you have a conversation here. So how this thing works is actually something like that. Let me open my another where I had it in here. So basically when you say something, what is the weather in New York, it returns you the result 70, and then say like, okay, what about the Boston? What it does in the backend, it actually creates these requests. So whenever you ask for the first time what's the weather in New York, it actually sends that as a request to the ChatGPT. It analyzes that and returns you the result. And the result comes something like system, you know, like content 70. Now for your next request, you need to basically send what's about the Boston. But when you were sending the request, you actually need to provide all of the context before. So imagine the situation like I'm talking to you and I'm saying, so like I'm talking to you and you're asking me what's the weather in New York, I would say it's, you know, like whatever the weather is, like 71 degrees. And then you would ask me what about Boston. I don't know how to answer. So you would need to ask me, what is the weather in New York? You said 71 degrees. What about Boston? And then it was answered, the Boston has, you know, like, I don't know, like the 80 degrees. And this is basically how the conversation, we don't talk like that, right? Like we do have a memory of a conversation which we hold, so we're able to hold the conversation. The LLM models they do not really have an idea of the conversation. There is no conversation happening. You sending into input absolutely everything what you told, what it replied to you, and what you told, then the model treats every request as a new conversation, where the conversation contains of a question is what the user sent and the answer which they generated. And whenever you ask the new question, you need to provide all of the information which was talked about and add basically additionally text. So it means that it's just like a black box into which you send a bunch of text and then it returns you the result. It's just like a